Hi.
Hey, there you are. Good morning. Hi T. Welcome to welcome to my humble podcast. Thank you for your time to record with me this morning. So yeah, we good? We ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
All right. So how are you, T? Are you still on a break or already training on your own, preparing for camp?
Oh yeah, of course. Already back training, running, lifting, all the things.
Okay. So first off, just for the record, I'd like to ask how to properly pronounce your name.
Tahnai,
Tane. Okay, gotcha. And how about your last name?
Anise.
Anis. Okay, because I hear different versions. Like there's Anis,
Oh yeah.
Tanai. All right, T. So, first question: how and when did you learn about the national team, and what made you decide to commit to playing for the national team in 2018?
So fun fact, I actually trialed um, at a camp in California in 2015.
Oh wow, you're a
Um,
part of that.
yes, I was. That's where I actually met Haley. Because that was her first camp as well. So I did that trial, and they wanted me to join. Um, but at the time, my passport process was so difficult that no one really knew what to do about it.
Oh wow.
Um, we didn't have the resources that we have now, and just kind of like all of our connections and networking to make that passport process so much smoother now, which is really awesome. But at the time, we just didn't have the knowledge behind it. And so when I, started that process, it was just I was met with a lot of no's, a lot of
Mhm.
that's not going to work. You can't do this, and kind of at the time the process was, well, just keep going back, and it'll just depend on the person that you get that day, and hopefully they'll say yes, or they'll push you through or
Wow.
something like that. And I wasn't living very close to a consulate at the time, and so I would keep going back, and every time it would be a different person, and I would wait 4 or 5 hours at the consulate, and then I would get up there and they'd be like, yeah, you don't have the right documentation. And I'm like, well, can you help me? What documents do I need? And they're just like, no, they're like, this isn't right. And so over that time, I just kept going back, and you know it got a little more frustrating every time. And the next campaign or qualifiers was coming up in 2016, and um it just didn't end up working out. I could not get to the next step in the passport process, and at the time I honestly didn't even know what that was. Like, everyone just kept saying no, like right at the beginning, and I was like, okay. um I think the only thing that did happen at that time is that my mom was able to get her dual citizenship back,
Uh-huh.
um because she had already naturalized when I was born, which in the end was the biggest issue, but we didn't know that that's why it was the biggest issue.
Mm.
So she was able to get her dual citizenship, but anything with my passport just never went through, and so it kind of all just like kind of fizzled away at that point in time. And so it was really upsetting. I was upset, and um, so after that camp and um, whatnot, I kind of just like let it go for a while. Um, and then at the time, I was also coaching at a university in Virginia, and I was getting my master's. So I was in school at the time. I wasn't playing, but I was just training. And um, by the time I was getting ready to finish my degree, I kind of realized that I was still not done playing and I wanted to get back into it. And luckily, or fortunately, I guess, at that time, um, another camp in California was rolling around, and I was like, okay, I was like, you know, let's give it a go one more time. And I was like, I didn't like how it ended last time. I didn't think that, um, it should have ended like that. So I was like, okay, one more time, let's go. So I went back out to California, trial it again. Um, and we were like, okay, let's do this differently this time. And it's like, we have to do something different because I can't just like keep going to different consulates and hoping that someone just is like, oh yeah, sure, we'll take you. Like that looks right. And it's like what we did last time wasn't correct. Like there's something missing here. And so it was jumping through hoops all over again. But at least this time we started to make a little bit of progress. And during during the preparation for at the time it would have been the 2018 Asian Cup,
Mm-hmm.
we like all went to the consulate together.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So it was,
Wow.
years in the making, and it was quite the process. But now obviously it's all worth it. But it
Yeah.
was really something.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for for giving it another try.
Yeah, I'm glad that I did.
All right. So your first time, 2018 AFC Asian Cup in Jordan, and then you were back this campaign. What made you come back, and if you can share the differences of the setup back then, and versus the support that the team is enjoying now.
It's night and day. um I don't even know if it's like a comparison because it's just like it's so different. And the experience was completely different, and that's what I was hoping for. Like the progress was just so much that it made it such a more enjoyable experience. Not that Jordan wasn't, because it was my first international campaign, so everything was new and um very exciting still. And so I didn't really know what to expect or what it was supposed to be like, but I did know that like it could have gone a lot smoother than it did in 2018. It was kind of all over the place. It was very much a whirlwind, and I was just kind of trying to take it day by day. 'Cause, we had a complete coaching staff change 3 weeks before 2018, after preparing for months with one coaching staff. And then when we get to the Philippines, we have a completely different coaching staff. So we had to start basically at square one. And so honestly, we had about 3 weeks preparation for that Asian Cup, which I know, and anyone would know that that's just not enough
Right.
to
Right.
get where you want to be and to get the results that you want. So, our our performance in that Asian Cup for me I thought it was really good, considering the preparation that we had for it and the resources that we had at that time. It was very stressful, and it was kind of crazy, but to do what we did to get a win, and even get ourselves into that position of being in a game where we could have qualified. Like we got to that game against South Korea, and if we would have won, we would have qualified. So like that was crazy to me. So it is just a testament, 3-4 years later, that second go around, we're able to qualify.
Yeah, I would agree. It really is night and day, and I'm glad we have you ladies have the resources that you have now. I'm very very grateful. Played in Iceland for a while.
Mhm.
You've helped uh, your team clinched the Icelandic championship, and you even played in the Champions League.
Mhm.
How was that experience like for you, and what was your main takeaway?
For my whole time at Iceland, or like playing in Champions League specifically?
Let's say both. Playing in Iceland, because you were based in you were playing in Florida, right? Before you went to Iceland.
Yeah, I was in
Yep.
college at Florida.
Right. Yeah.
Um, for me, it was a really amazing experience. It was my first professional contract outside of, outside of school. It was
Mm.
kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because right out of college, at the time, it wasn't the NWSL. That's how long ago.
Yeah.
It was NWSL. At the time, I think it was called the WPS. And, you know, it was struggling. And, but they were still having, a draft after, each college season and things like that. And um, I actually got drafted right out of college. I
Mhm.
forgot when the draft was, and the day of the draft, I started getting calls from my teammates, and they were like, "Congratulations!" And I was like, "Oh, for what?" They're like, "The draft was today," and I was like, "Oh," and they were like, "You just got drafted to the New York Flash," and I was like, "What?" I was like,
Wow.
so shocked. I had no idea. Well, that was like kind of crazy to me, because I didn't even, think that that was kind of in the realm of possibility. Um, so it was like a lot of excitement right then. And then 2 weeks later, the league folded. Uh, yeah. So it was like so much excitement. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do I do now?
What now? Hmm.
Um, and I was contacted by an agent, and he was like, I want to represent you. I think I could get you something. It's unfortunate that the league here just folded, and we don't know like when it will come back. Like, they obviously like want to try and get it to come back, but you can't really bank on that right now. So it's like, okay, like, let's do this. And um probably a few weeks later, um he had an offer for me to play with Thorkawa in Akureyri, Iceland, which is like the second largest city
Hmm.
outside of Reykjavik, but still only like 17,000 people. So it's like very tiny, but it's
Yeah.
considered the largest city in Iceland. And um, I had always wanted to go overseas and was, a big traveler. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, let's do it. Um, and so I did that in 2012, right when I graduated. I think I left school a little bit early to go over there, and I played there for 3 seasons: 2012, 13, and 14. And 2013 was the year that we played in Champions League, because in 2012 is when we won that cup, and it was the first
Hmm.
time that club had ever won the cup.
Hmm.
So it was really cool. And so me and there were two other Americans that were over there playing on the club, and all three of us, well, a few of us came back. And um, that next year was just kind of surreal, getting to play in the Champions League. And we drew a team in Russia, and it was actually a really good draw. We didn't get any of the like big clubs. So we were like, oh, we kind of like, we might have a chance here. Um, but it was our club's first time ever playing in Champions League. Literally everyone's first time ever playing at that big of a stage, and our team was also really young. Um, so I think we kind of went in there with just a little bit too much rawness and too much inexperience to kind of handle the gravity of that situation and what it was.
Right. Right.
Um, so it was all, everyone was just like so excited to be there, and just like have the experience. And we did well. We competed well in both our home and away legs. And we definitely gave that team a run for their money. I think we could have won, but their experience and um, you know, kind of brought them through that. They were a much more seasoned team than we were, and I think that's what kind of pulled them through. But it was a really cool experience, and um, something to learn from, and still kind of like build my um, experience playing at such a high level and on that kind of stage. So many people don't get to do that, and I
Right.
can say that I have, and I just really grateful for that. But yeah, I loved my experience at my club in Iceland, and that's why I went back for one more season after that, was just because of the staff there and the coaching staff, and the girls were really amazing. And since it was such a small town, like, and we were so far away from home, the families there always made us feel really welcome. And we were able to do so much while we were there. We would like put on our own like soccer clinics, and just kind of travel around, and
Nice.
we got to do a lot of exciting stuff. So it was definitely like a really great first professional playing experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like fun. And
Mhm.
also, well, it's the Champions League tea, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
tops everything.
it really
all right,
was.
all right. So I've been meaning to like really approach you and talk to you. Just gonna say hi, but you do not appear to be like the typical leader who would be very animated or loud or vocal like Haley or Serena, if you will. But to me, there's always this silent confidence and calmness. Even, can you describe how you are as a team leader? Sorry, team captain rather. My bad.
Um, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm definitely not the most animated. Um, I do, I at least feel when I'm on the pitch, like during games and things like that, and definitely during trainings, that I am vocal. But even when I'm vocal, I feel like still like from outside, like no one sees, because there's always like one or two more voices that are so much louder than me and can like carry. And I'm just like, okay, well, I tried. I'm always trying to you know, be heard. But I think for me, it's a little more outside of my character. And I do want to like not feel like I have to go so far outside of myself to lead. I think earlier on, like in college and things like that, when I think my senior year, I was captain for a bit, and I think I tried to be a little bit more outside of myself, and as to what I thought like a leader needed to be. Like I always thought like, oh, the leader needs to be the loudest person on the field and has to have this kind of certain persona. Um, Not to even like be feared or something like that, but just kind of like that intimidatingness. But as I've gotten older, um, and realize I can kind of lead in my own way, and it doesn't have to be like that, because I think you need a little bit of both. Not everyone's going to respond to that, and it's good that we do have vocal leaders, more animated, that can, you know, uh, kind of motivate those that do respond really well to that. But then I do know that there's also players that will respond to a more calming energy. um, and I think that I can bring that to our team, when people might be feeling anxious or nervous,
Yeah.
things like that, to know, the energy kind of gets to start with me. It's like, okay, well, how how is someone that is in a leadership position going to handle this situation? Like, are they nervous? Are they anxious? And it kind of starts from me, and that has to be contagious from me, that kind of spreads through. And So if I can be calm, if I can kind of exude that, then I think that gets through the team, and people can feel that. Um, and so if anything, I just try and lead by example and make sure that I never ask anything of anyone else that I'm not already doing. So if I'm not doing it, if I know in that moment I can't do it, I'm not going to ask anyone else to. Um, so that's, I guess, how I would describe myself as a leader.
Right. So as a captain, do you take on an active role in helping new players transition to the team?
Yeah, definitely. I try to, especially since kind of each campaign we've had some new people
Right.
um, come in, and I also know what it's like to be someone new coming into an environment like that. And it is uncomfortable, and it can be awkward, and it can be scary. And I think that what I try and do is just at least not make the team scary. Like the whole situation in itself, coming into a national team and you're trialing, and you have these new coaches' eyes on you, and there's a lot of pressure externally already. So if I can at least try and alleviate the pressure or intimidation of the team itself, and in the girls, um, I just want them to feel included and welcome, and not that like we're already, that you have to be on the outside until you can get in. Like once the coaches have decided like you're going to be in our training camp, you're here to trial for like the amount of time, we can't really waste any energy on like trying to out people and keep them on the outside, and like, kind of like be a club where like, oh, well, you have to do certain things in order to like get in our circle. um it's not like that. It's like once the coaches have decided you're going to be in our bubble, you're going to be with us, and you're going to do every single thing that the team is doing, like you've got to treat them like they're part of it until the coaches decide they are, or the coaches decide that they're not. But I don't think that should be our decision to keep them on the outside just because they don't have a jersey yet or something like that. So before each campaign, I kind of like figure out who the newcomers are, who's coming in, and I'll generally reach out to them before camp and kind of just introduce myself, and um, ask them if they have any questions, and if they need anything, like they can reach out to me, just kind of before coming into meeting 25, 26 people all at once, and you're having random people just come up to you and say hi and things like that. So I try and be like that familiar face, like once they get there, be like, oh well, I've met this person before, so I can like kind of come and already know someone.
Awesome. That's really really good to know, T. So, what's the secret to the team's cohesiveness? Considering, like you said, almost every camp there's a new addition to the team, and yet the team still plays as a unit, and they still remain disciplined. What do you think would be the secret to that?
um I think it's just the message that Haley and I give, is that, like I said, once the coaches have decided someone is with us during a training camp or a campaign, like they're with us. And I think once everyone sees that, the leaders have taken this person in, and they're not treating them like outsiders, and um, just basically like treating people with respect. I think that's just what it comes down to, is, like we don't have to be best friends. You don't have to like make this person doesn't have to be part of your friend group that you've just met or whatever, but they deserve the same respect coming in that you would want coming into a team situation like that. So I think that Haley and I bring that clear message that, you know, you're not going to, we're going to welcome these people. We're going to help them come on board and integrate as much as possible and as quickly as possible, because we don't have time to, deal with things that are, it would be silly. It would be, wasted energy to not include them. It takes more energy to not include someone than it does to include someone. And so I think everyone kind of follows that message and that feeling. And so quickly, people are able to integrate, and we're able to just like be a unit and move forward and keep progressing, instead of like bringing people in and we have to like take 2 steps backwards because, we don't want these people here, or, it's like
Right.
an us versus them thing. Like very quickly we make it an us situation.
Right. Thank you for saying that, T. So that's actually a good segue to my next question. So I've read that you're an ambassador for Athletes Ally, and as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you've seemed to be really authentic and confident. Where does that come from? Can you share a bit of that journey?
It comes from a lot of years of journey. So you've got me at a good time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's been a long time coming. I've definitely not felt this, I guess, confident or accepting of myself until probably the last handful of years, maybe even just a couple years, because it's definitely an up and down journey of self-acceptance and kind of being able to express myself in the way that feels most authentic to me, and being able to do that with not caring so much as to how everyone else sees me, and being more worried about how I see myself. But yeah, I mean, I probably wasn't out publicly until I was like 25, 26.
Oh, wow.
And not really that really comfortable in my skin until I was probably like 30. So it's been a long time. A lot of back and forth of questioning myself, doubting myself, and just not really allowing myself to be seen, I guess. Like I've always been like the behind the scenes, like, I don't need any spotlight on me. I don't need to like speak up and, say things. I can just kind of like coast in the back, and that's always been really fine for me. But I think in the past few years, I've kind of like either been pushed into that role of like having to be seen by people, and also just feeling more comfortable in that space and allowing myself to kind of like be in the spaces where I will say something, and I will allow myself to be seen and visible, because I think that's the most important thing. And I know that's what has helped me definitely come out more and be more public in accepting myself, is just finally seeing people like myself out in the world, and seeing them being authentic and being happy and being real, and just knowing that like they can thrive also, and so can I, being myself and not being what I've always known that maybe my family wants me to be, or like what your culture wants you to be, or whatever society you're living in. And kind of just really like, I guess when you get pushed when you feel like you're kind of pushed to the outsides, um you get to see it from a different perspective. You get to look inside on like what's happening in there. And honestly, I think once I was pushed out there and I decided to like look in, I was like, oh, I really like don't want to be in there anyway. I was like, oh, it's like I feel better out here. And so I think I'll just like stay out here and then like do well out here, and like with the other people that have been pushed out here, but with also like trying to give perspective to those that are I guess have not been pushed to the outside, and not feeling like I have to, you know, make them feel whatever I felt. Um so I guess it's just kind of like being available and being um support for those that still feel really bad being pushed to the outside or feeling left out there, that like it's okay. It's okay out here. And even if you want to go like back in, that's perfectly fine, but now you have like a whole different perspective that you can maybe offer to those that have never been pushed out and don't know what it's like out here, but like I'm enjoying it out here and I'm perfectly fine to stay out here.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, T. Thank you for being so open and generous. I was particularly interested in that, and I can relate to it. I mean, as a lesbian myself, I have not come into terms with it until, like you, maybe in my late 20s, and it's particularly challenging, especially when you live here in the Philippines. But we've made strides, and it's heading towards the right direction with all the passionate allies and advocates continuously speaking their truth, like yourself now. Thank you very much. Uh, so, coming to terms with it now, T, what will you say to a person or football player struggling with self acceptance?
um I think what I can say is just to be patient um with those around you and with yourself. Everyone's journey to accepting themselves is so different. Um, you can relate to other people's stories, you can relate to other people's struggles that, maybe you came from a religious background, or you are growing up in a very small town that, like, doesn't really accept, or you've just had different traumas in your life that have kept you from being able to live out your truth or feel comfortable to do so. So, and it's never just like, it's never, sucks is it's never just like coming out once.
Right.
You're kind of like continually coming out, I feel like. But it is also nice, depending on where you are, that like we are kind of coming to a time, especially in certain areas where you don't have to come out, where you don't have to have that conversation of like, oh, well, like this is who I am. And, like kind of like looking for that acceptance, like, this is who I am. Do you still love me? Do you still accept me? And it just being like a part of like conversation, just to be like, oh, well, like, so do you have a partner? And you're like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. Yeah, I have a boyfriend. Yeah, I'm, just anything like that, just having to have the conversation and it just kind of like not have to break. It's just like, oh, okay, well, like, that's awesome. Cool. And not having to be like, oh, well, let me just like preface this, like, I'm gay, or, that kind of thing where you're having to have that like really intense conversation where you're like deciding or hoping that this person is still going to see you the same way and treat you the same way, because it doesn't change who you are as a person. So I think just giving yourself that bit of compassion, to be okay with where you are. And, if you're not out, if you don't know if you can, like, it's very scary. And I stayed, or was just so scared for so long, just kind of like living in fear of, and having all these scenarios in my head of like how this conversation would go with this person and this person and that person. And once I finally got around to whether or not I was okay, like if it was okay with me that I was who I was, like, then it made it so much easier, and it was less fearful of like what anyone else thought if I came out to them, and whether or not they accepted me or not. Because I think for so long what I was looking for was the external validation of who I was, instead of like I needed other people to tell me that it was okay for me to feel like it was okay. Like that held more importance to me until, up until a few years ago, where I was like, it needs to matter the most to me. And once it matters the most to me, and I'm okay with me, and, I love myself and accept myself, then it's really not going to matter how anyone else accepts me or loves me, because I have that validation internally, and that will always outweigh the external of how anyone else sees me. But that's like like I said, a very long journey. But regardless, like, there's going to be people who love and support you no matter what. But it is a scary place, and everyone's journey is different, and it might take long, and it might not be a bad experience. And I really hope it's not for anyone. But it will be okay. And do know that.
Yeah. Right, because we talk a lot about compassion towards others, but I'm glad you said that. To be more compassionate to yourself, to be kind to yourself as well.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Right. Whew. Wow. Okay, let's go back to football. Thank you, T. Thank you. All right. So, in an interview in the AFF final, you said, and I quote, "We're really starting to believe in ourselves. The hard work is starting to show, and everyone's getting a lot more confident. When we show up now, we're there to win." A lot of the supporters that I know, or have spoken to, are concerned with the possibility of being grouped with the US. Maybe not just the US, but a higher ranked team. And I think their concern really is, the possibility of like a thrashing scenario, like what happened in USA versus Thailand in 2019. How confident are you with all the preparation that you ladies are doing now for the World Cup, going into the World Cup?
I'm very confident, especially just how far we've come in just this year, just in 2022. We have a little bit less than a year until the World Cup now. But I'm confident because we have so much preparation already put in place. And each time we know what's next, and we know that there's something next that we're working towards. And I think it's a lot easier to continue to put in work and continue to grind and things like that when you know what's next. When things are so uncertain and up in the air, if we were going into a situation right after AFF when we're like, I don't know when we're going to see each other again. I don't know when we're going to train. I don't know when we're going to play. That it kind of puts a little bit of anxiety in the air, and maybe a little bit of fear of like, oh, well, are we preparing? Is it going to be enough? Or, are we doing enough? But I think what the staff has done well is put in a plan, and so far, we've ticked off all of those boxes. We've been following that plan, and I think that's what helps give us all a little bit more confidence moving forward as we keep preparing, because we each time we go home or you go back to your clubs or whatever, we're already like, okay, well, what we did was amazing, and we'll always have that, but this is what's next. This is where we have to look forward to now. You have 3 weeks, you have 4 weeks until we're back together again, and we have to hit the ground running each time. So that helps give our team and everyone confidence that we're preparing, because we're continually working towards the next thing. There's no like up in the air of like, oh well, we're not going to do anything for 4 months. How can we be prepared? How can we be separated for that long? Even if we know everyone's off doing their own workouts or with a team or whatever it is, we know that people are putting in work, but we have to be able to get back together to see where we are, to know that it's still progressing and going in the right direction. And I think we are, and so I'm confident with our preparations.
Wow, that makes me feel at ease.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried at all, especially after seeing the team in the AFF and how you played.
Mm-hmm.
Not worried if any like thrashing scenario, to be honest with you. Is there anything that you're currently working on in preparation for the upcoming friendlies and the World Cup, like for yourself?
For me, just staying healthy. I'm just trying to stay as healthy as I can, get as strong as I can. I know I have all the experience. So I have that with me that I can always take. But I know that I'm not young. I am young. I'm young at heart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count always on the field. So I'm just trying to prepare myself physically as best as I can. Because I know that will be a big thing for me leading up to next year. Is, can I be healthy? Can I keep up with all of the younger players out there, and not even younger players, because there are older players that are killing it too in all different countries, but they've also been playing, and they play all the time. So I've got catching up to do. So for me, it's really just about trying to be healthy and be strong and be able to put in the physicality that I know that high level will expect of me.
Right. We always wish and pray for an injury-free campaign.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the most memorable thing about playing for the Philippines so far?
Got a lot. I think nothing can take away from us qualifying for the World Cup. Since I was little, that was any youth player's dream. I want to play in the World Cup. I think one day I'm going to play in the World Cup. And so for that to kind of, well, not yet, but for it to be a possibility, is like, that was the icing on the cake for me. But I think the most memorable was definitely this AFF campaign. To be in the Philippines and to just have the support that we did. When I think about it, when I watch all of the videos and everything like that, it's like very emotional for me. And so I think that campaign like created a lot of like core memory for me. And that's what, when you get asked that question, like that's what popped up for me. I know it was obviously the most recent as well, but it really does just make a difference when you have fans there and people supporting you and, wanting you to succeed and wanting you to do well. It, it was harder in India to um to qualify and to
Yeah.
have that happen, and there's like no one there but the only people around you to like share that with you, which is like amazing to have, your team with you, and it was, something I'll never forget. But it's nice to then like have that extra layer of like people around you like bringing you in and kind of sharing that with you. I think what it was is that we didn't really get to share it with anyone. Like we shared it with ourselves, and this is like a downer for me, but I always like come back to this, is that when we qualified that night against Chinese Taipei, I had to get drug tested right after. So I was away from the team all night.
Really?
All night. I got to take like the first pictures with the team, like the big group picture or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then like right after that, they're like, T, you have to go get drug tested. And I was like, what? And they're like, you have to come right now. And so for like, and I was in there for like 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
So when I got back to the hotel, everyone was asleep. Everyone was asleep, and I was so upset that when I came back, like in my end of the hallway, I woke everyone back up, and I was like, you people get out here and celebrate with me. I was like, I just sat in a room by myself for 2.5 hours after that just happened. So I always am like still so bitter about it. So like I really didn't get to share it with people. So then like this like 180 of the AFF finally getting to celebrate, and I was like no one's getting drug tested, none of that's happening. I was like, I want to run around the field with the flag, so like I made sure I had the flag for this one and got to run around and do all of the celebrating. So it's definitely most memorable for me.
Right. What was that for? Is it like a random thing?
Yeah,
You
it was
just
random.
you
Yeah,
were
it
the lucky one?
was the so lucky one that to do that night. Yeah.
Wow. All right, so let's go to the social media questions. So, from Cali Nueva, alongside Ali Borromeo, you're one of my all-time favorite PH skippers. What have your challenges been like as a captain of the team so far?
Challenges. Honestly, not that many, which is really, really nice. Really, I think it's just always keeping everyone on the same page and keeping everyone engaged and mentally there with us. Especially this year, we've had so many long campaigns
All right.
that, so many things can happen during that time. And everyone's going through so many ups and downs, and everyone's going through their own emotional, mental, physical journey. So to keep everyone on the same page for that long of time, and to keep everyone engaged and keep everyone, showing up every day and making sure, honestly, that like I'm engaged the whole time and showing up every single day. Like I said, like I'm not going to ask everyone else to show up if I can't do it myself. So I'm not going to expect that out of anyone else if I'm not doing it too. So it's that balance of like keeping everyone engaged, keeping everyone on the right track, but then also making sure that I'm in check too. That has been, I think, the most difficult thing.
Okay. Next question from Kevin Estrada. With the bond between the past and present, Malditas going strong. Your biggest takeaways from their playing experience, especially to former skippers such as Coach Mariel and Patrice Impelido.
I can't really speak too much to Coach Mariel's experience. I know her and Haley definitely have that connection there. But I did get to play one campaign with Patrice in Asian Cup in 2018. And I think him kind of has the same disposition as myself of being, not the most vocal,
Yeah.
not the most like in your face kind of, leader. And so I think we both kind of like had an understanding of like where we were and what kind of leader we were. So I think it was not too difficult of a transition to go from Patrice then to me, because I felt like we kind of felt similarly and held ourselves in a similar way. So I'm glad I feel like it was kind of like a smooth transition. And it was also really nice to have her on staff for our Asian Cup campaign. Getting to learn from her in a different light and her kind of taking on a different role. I think that was also really good for our team to have, that she was still there, just in a different capacity.
Right. I'd agree with that. Your leadership is kind of like pimps, not so vocal and yet very, out there and available, if you will. So next question would be from Psychedelicado. I'm just curious, but what's behind the beautiful name Tahnai? What is the meaning of it? Is it Filipino, Urdu, Hindi, or Native American?
So I wish I had like a really good story for this. And I think that as I, get older, I just start making up stories that like sound cool because it's really uncool. But everyone's like, oh, what a cool name. And then they're like, how'd you get it? What is it? And every time I'm like, well, my parents made it up. I'm like, it's not anything. So I just like, if some people like just like assume what it is, they'll be like, oh, Tahnai, so that like, this and that. And I'm like, that sounds really cool. Yeah, it is.
Actually,
sure.
At first I thought it was like Hawaiian.
I like that. Yeah, some people are like, so is it like Hawaiian? And I'm like, I like Hawaiian. Yeah, it is. But it's actually the story that I get from my parents is that my parents liked this model or something that was pretty popular around the time that I was born, and her name was Tahnai. So they just like changed the last syllable to Tahnai. But then also like I do know that a lot of Filipinos that have like come across my name, and even my grandparents, they've always spelled my name wrong growing up, and they spell it like Tahnai, the area in the Philippines. Tahnai. And like they put it on my like birthday cards and Christmas cards, and I'm like, this is not how you spell my name. Like, why do they keep doing this? Like, why do they keep spelling it like that? And they're like, well, that's your name, like that's what it's from. And I'm like, I was like, it's not, but okay. And then so yeah, it's made up. It's not Filipino, it's not Hawaiian, it's not anything, culture related. So no heritage, anything, but any cool stories about it, I pretty much just like adopt it. I'm like, yeah, it's that. People are like, awesome.
All right, at least now we know. Okay. From the same person, yeah. I was also fortunate to sit next to your mom during the match against Vietnam. She told me that your sister didn't play soccer but did gymnastics instead to avoid potential sibling rivalry. He asked about the passport, which you've already explained in detail. So, yeah. What about that sibling rivalry, T?
My mother loves drama. Um, that's what that sounds like because I didn't know it that way. My perspective on why my sister did gymnastics was because when she played youth soccer, like when my parents put her in youth soccer, she took one ball to the face and it was like, nope, I'm out, not doing that. So she was like, I'm not doing any sport that has anything to do with a ball. So that's how I see it. And I'm pretty sure that's how Taryn explains it too, is that it just wasn't for her. I think in my parents' mind, that was the reason that they came up with, was that, oh, well, we don't want our, children to have that rivalry or whatever, but probably just because my family's so competitive, they were like, oh, well, we should have them in different sports so that they don't compete and everything like that. But I did gymnastics growing up too. So I really think it was just that experience of her taking a ball to the face and she was like, this is not for me.
All right. So, next question would be from, this is also from Twitter, Jim Colaru. Not sure if I Colorado. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Have you pictured yourself settling down in the Philippines?
I feel like it's definitely something I can consider. When I think of settling down, that makes me anxious. Because I'm a gypsy and don't do well when I'm in one place for too long. Is why I honestly don't have a home. I usually just say wherever I'm living is just where I am currently. So I've been in Chicago now for like almost a year, but most of that I've been traveling. So I still wouldn't even call it like my home. It's just like where my things are. Because yeah, I haven't stayed anywhere for longer than like 2 years, and that was because I had to, because I was getting my degree or whatever. But other than that, I jump around all over the place just because I love to travel and I love being in different places and honestly living in different places. So maybe one day I'll decide that I want to stay somewhere. But I would definitely, I think, consider the Philippines because it is an actual place that I can go and live. Because it's a bit harder to go and live in other countries, with visas and all of that stuff like that. So it being an actual place I can go definitely is appealing to me because I really don't want to settle down in the United States.
Oh wow. All right, so let's go to Facebook now from Kialin Suyom. This is always a question. This always comes out. Your favorite Filipino food?
I'm pretty basic. I'm a pancit canton girl through and through. Simple. It's everywhere, but it's something I've always loved, and it was always something that my mom cooked. She didn't cook a lot of different Filipino foods, but that's something that I think also has like a bit of nostalgia for me, and it's something that I can cook, so I enjoy it too because it's something I can make for myself if I need to.
Right. Okay, from Bolivs Bolivar, 2 questions here. What are your three favorite goals that you scored or assisted for the national team? And his second question is, if you could choose 3 other midfielders, not from the Philippines, to play with, who would you choose and why?
Both. 3 favorite goals or assists. Okay. Thought about this for a little bit. I think one of them would be the goal versus, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Nepal last year.
Qualifiers, yeah.
Yeah, in the AFC qualifiers, in like the last minute of the game. Because if we didn't get that goal, we would have never been anywhere.
Right.
So that one was a pretty important one. That felt good. It was a bit of a relief. And then definitely scoring my PK in the shootout versus Chinese Taipei. I think that one, just because I knew that I was going to score. So it was like really nice to like walk up there, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to score. So we're fine. And then probably, we had so many good goals in AFF.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the one that was really good was our first corner kick against Vietnam to Haley. That one felt really good. And I think like when we scored that goal, I was just like, I think from right then I was like, oh, like we've got this. Like that was so good, and it like happened at the right time. And I remember, all of our video analysis like leading up to that game, because we go over set pieces and stuff of our opponent beforehand. And something that the coaches were harping on so much is like, hey, like our set pieces, we have to be dangerous. Like teams are scared of us on our set pieces, but we have to we have to convert. And they kept showing, they were like, hey, the near post is open. The near post is open. Find the near post. And Haley's run is the near post run. And, for so long we were like, hey, it's going to happen. We're going to get it. And it's going to happen when it's supposed to. Like, I know it. And then when I like took that corner and like right when I struck it, I was like, oh my God, that's going to be a goal. And Haley just, comes out of nowhere and just like smashes it in, like couldn't be saved. And so, yeah, like that was awesome. And I was just like, remember just like going to her and being like, it happened, like it's happening. Like I knew it was going to happen, and it happened at the right time. And just like everything, it's going to go well for us. So I felt like just like a shift in things. And I was just like, yeah, we're doing the right things.
Definitely. All right, next question from RD Bedro. Are you still on the lookout for a club football type of competition or game, or are you focusing on the World Cup and training on your own and be with the team?
Kind of TBD. Yeah, I'm looking for a club. So yeah, everyone put their feelers out.
Okay. From Jana Pabalan. Who's your favorite football player, and what's the secret behind your killer set pieces?
Favorite football player. Oof. I'm a bad football sports fan. I know that's like not cool and shouldn't be, but I'm bad. But I think it's more of like a personal football player for me. I've always kind of more growing up, I guess, in me watching more than I do now as an adult. I definitely like I've always been a fan of Xavi and Iniesta. Like if I were to, like to play like a certain midfielders, like that's like goals kind of thing. Cause
Sure.
I love, when the game looks simple and it's pretty and it's beautiful, like that's like top for me if it looks like that, and it's just out of just doing simple things. Like I have never been like oohed and awed by like the flashy stuff and moves and things like that. Like I think it's awesome and it's really great for those that can do it. That's never been in my toolkit. So to see players like them at that level just be able to play so simple and do the right things consistently, and more so out of just an intelligence for the game and out of an instinct of just like knowing where to be so that you don't have to do anything special to be effective, are my favorite kinds of players. But then also ever since I've been little, one of my best friends has always been my favorite player, and I always tell her that growing up. And her name is Tori Huster. She plays in the NWSL. She's been the captain of the Washington Spirit for like the last 10 years, and she's like one of the OG players in the NWSL that has been there right from the start. And she's actually the NWSL Players Association president.
Nice.
We played together growing up in Ohio. So I've always just, ever since we were little, I'm like, Tori, you're my idol. And it makes her so mad. And I was like, you are my idol. Like, you're so amazing. And I always like, just like admired her as a player and as a person. So I always tell her, ever since we were little, like, you're my favorite player. And she hates me for it, but she's a quality player that, has always like stayed consistent and, isn't flashy and stuff like that, but is always someone that you would want on your team. So that's probably my answers for football players.
Right. Kind of like you are too. You're not flashy, but you're just there doing your thing.
Okay. I'll be
Okay. From Instagram now, from Faifu_faith. What adjustments did you make before and after joining the national team?
Adjustments. I feel like I kind of just had to reset my priorities. Because when you join at an older age, and when I hadn't been playing for a year or two. So there's a big adjustment there when you kind of re-enter the football world, playing after not playing and then playing at an international level. So I think there had to be an adjustment, one, in my mindset, and then kind of just life adjustments. I think I moved right after, and I've had to really decide what is important, because as much as we would want to say that this is like a very lucrative profession, you kind of have to decide what you're playing for and why. And so there was a lot of like back and forth of like, but you're older and you have bills to pay and you have things that you have to do and need to have. And, then try not to compare yourself to other people around you and what they're doing, like I'm in my late 20s, I should be, you need to have a steady job. You need to be, saving your money for a home. You need to like do all of these things. And I kind of had to adjust, like pivot and decide that I'm not ready for that, and it's not what I want, and people are going to think that you're a little crazy to still, go down this path of like playing soccer. A lot of people, especially, well, it's getting much better. Like, it can be lucrative now to be a women's professional footballer in the right places. But if you're not, one of the top players in the world, it's still a struggle, to continue to play just because you love the game. So I've had to check in with myself and adjust myself accordingly to make sure that I can still play because I love playing. And I've had to sacrifice different, things for that in order to continue to play. So it's definitely difficult. But I think those were the biggest adjustments I made once, joining the team and, making that the priority. And it's still, I'm still adjusting and making adjustments in between each campaign of like how I move forward. And, do I need to get a job here, do this during this break, and everything like that. And there's a lot of moving pieces in order to be able to continue to do this.
Definitely isn't. You know that even in the top level, if you're not that of a good player, it's still not that lucrative. All right. Last question from social media. What were your expectations for the team as a team member or a new member of the squad? And what were your expectations for the team when you became a captain?
I don't know if I really had expectations when joining, for the first time. I didn't really know what I was walking into. Um, I didn't even for the longest time, I didn't even know we had a national team, until I met the assistant coach of the Azkals at the time. That's how I first got connected. It was when Thomas Dooley, his first stint with the Azkals, I met his assistant, Bruno Baltazar.
Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno, at a combine for at an event that I was helping run. My one of my best friends runs a like a combine company for men, and he was bringing in scouts to look at players, and I helped run the events. And Bruno was there, and I got to talking to him, and he asked like what my ethnicity was, and I was like, I'm Filipino, half Filipino. And he was like, oh really? Like, he's like, I think at the time he's like, yeah, I'm the assistant coach for the Azkals, which is the men's team, and we have a women's team. And I was like, I did not know that. And he actually got me in touch with Heather Cook. And so that's how like I got in touch with her, and that's how I found out about like the camps and stuff like that. So expectations coming in, like I did not know what to expect, and they had to kind of like shift quickly because the first campaign that I played in, I was the captain for that campaign. So being a new member, didn't really have expectations. And honestly, that first campaign, even being captain, I didn't have expectations either. I just wanted us to all work hard and do as well as we could with what we had. And that was at the time really my only expectations. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So that's it for social media questions. Just lastly, T, your message to the stakeholders of Philippine women's football or Philippine football in general.
I think my message would just be to keep supporting us. I know, back in when I first met Alan and Naz, they sat us down and asked us, what our experience has been with the Philippines, and where we think we can go, and just kind of like what we were hoping for. And I remember telling them is that we just needed people to invest in us. We just needed people to take the time and kind of take a chance on us. We were having complete coaching staff turnovers every campaign. We were, just like all over the place in so many aspects outside of just the soccer, outside of football. And I knew that we had a group that wanted to work hard and really, wanted to represent the country in the best way that we could, but we just didn't have the resources. We didn't have enough time, resources, and investment in us to be able to show like how much we cared and how much we wanted to honor the country and, bring football back to life for the Philippines, and especially in women's football. And I just told them that I was like, if we can get that investment, if we can get that investment from a staff, if we can get that investment from the PFF, from any supporters, I was like, we will be successful. We will do good things, and it will happen. And I think it's happening. And I just want everyone to, stick with us, and so that it continues to grow and it continues to flourish, and that this won't be the only time that the Philippines women's football has success. I want this just to be like the little tip of the iceberg that like gets bigger and only keeps growing, but that only happens if everyone continues to invest in us and believe in what we're doing, and that so that we can grow it for all of the younger generations, to be able to have these same opportunities that we do now. And I think that we've been able to show that even just like a little bit of investment and a little bit of time spent on us has had really good payoffs. And if you can sustain that and stay consistent, it will continue to be beneficial for PFF and its stakeholders, and mainly for the team and for the country in general.
All right. Thank you, T.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just thankful for your openness and for being so generous. I appreciate it very much, T.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Come on here. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was honestly like I've been wanting to like message you and have you on, but I'm like to be honest, like I've always been intimidated because I didn't know how to approach you.
I'm so scary. Yeah. So
All right.
scary. What everyone says. Everyone
Really?
says that to me. That's what we did this back in whenever it was, November
Yeah.
of 2021. We did this exercise, Disney White House, and there's like 15 or 16 of us in there living or whatever. And she's like, okay, we're gonna do an exercise, and everyone's gonna have a piece of paper, and it's gonna like be for everyone, and it's gonna go around to everyone. And I want you to put down what your first impression of the person is,
Okay.
and then now that you know them, spend a lot of time around them, like how like has that changed? Like what is it now that you like feel about them, or what their like biggest asset is?
Mhm.
And I kid you not, I get that paper back, and like 12 out of 15 say scary or intimidating. And I'm like, what?
Okay, I don't feel so alone now.
Yeah, no, like my sister even tells me that. My sister's always like, I bring people to meet you, and like her friends and even like her boyfriend now was like, first time I'm meeting you, like they're just so intimidated by you. And I was like, I literally do nothing I feel like that is intimidating. And everyone's like, well, that's it, is you're just like observing people and you're watching and you don't say much. So we don't like know what you're thinking. And I'm like, am I giving off this? I was like, do I like scowl at people? Like, I was like, I'm not loud. I'm not like doing anything, but everyone's like, but you're so scary. And I was like, I think so. But you just need to like spend a little time with me. And then they're like,
Yeah.
you're like scary. And I'm
I
like, yeah, I
I
tried.
I feel better now, actually.
Good. I'm glad.